One other thing about vehicle breakdown. Let's say you are stuck, it's cold out. You got to get through a couple of cold nights. Maybe, like one guy I know, he even talked to the searchers and they said, sorry man, there's a storm coming, all our birds are grounded, all our helicopters are grounded. We can't get to you. You're going to have to hole up for 3 or 4 days until this weather clears. So don't assume that just because you got all your gear and you're very experienced in survival in the outdoors that things can't happen. Murphy's Law is out here, just like it is in our daily lives. So you got to spend a cold night. For one thing, you're sleeping in here. This is the cold sink right here. So get your feet off the cold well of the bottom of the cab here, or the bottom of the truck. Put it across your spouse or your partner, put it across the seat here, but get it off the cold part. Then, to conserve fuel, run your vehicle about every 15 minutes on the hour. You start it up, you get the heat going, it helps warm that core temperature up. Crack your window and make sure the tailpipe's clear. If there's snow on the ground, you don't want to succumb to carbon monoxide poisoning. It's been called the silent killer because you just don't see it or smell it or feel it coming on. So crack your window when you're doing that. Make sure your tailpipe's clear if there's a lot of ice or snow or that kind of thing on the ground. And then run your vehicle 15 minutes on the hour, and that will conserve your fuel for the next day or so, assuming you have a full tank of gas. Most people burn through their fuel in the first 6 or 8 hours or first day, and then they're stuck out there for a few more days. Here's a neat trick I learned from a friend. You take these Mylar blankets, these emergency blankets, you can get these for $2, $3 at gear shops. And you open this up, you use some duct tape, and you create a panel behind you and seal off the unused portion of your vehicle. So this is a truck, there's not going to be that much heat loss, but if you've got a Suburban or a van or a large vehicle, you want to get rid of that unused space so you're not heating that with your vehicle fuel and with your body heat. So seal that off, and that's where these things come in handy. These Mylar blankets only have a shelf life of about 6 months, and then they deteriorate along the seams. They don't, in my opinion, have a lot of uses. They're not that handy, but one thing I have found them useful for is to keep them in the glove box for the winter time, and then in the springtime you can toss them or use them as a tarp for a day or something like that. They just don't hold up that well, but they can be excellent for sealing up your vehicle and turning it into a more heat efficient shelter. Duct tape, of course, zillions of uses for this. So I always have this in my vehicle kit. You can use this for patching up your radiator hose, or creating an instant band-aid, or fixing a tear in your clothing or your sleeping bag or something like that. So don't leave home without this stuff. But these two items definitely go with me in the colder months of the year. One last thing I want to address is if you're a parent and you're coming out here to visit, coming out to the desert to visit the Grand Canyon or Sedona, or going to Death Valley or Bryce, or these places here in the West where we have these magnificent desert parks, Joshua Tree, those kinds of areas. Keep in mind that kids are not little adults. They have their own requirements. They need a lot more water. You've got to be on top of them with staying hydrated, because they're going to say, oh, Mommy, I'm not very thirsty. I don't need any water. And it's like, no, you need to sit down now and drink this whole quart of water, or we're not going on this hike. You've got to really harp on them and be on top of them, especially the smaller they are. You've got to be responsible for coating the heck out of them with sunscreen and getting them a brimmed hat, carrying an umbrella with you in your vehicle if you do break down. Again, you can provide instant shade if you got to wait it out for a tow truck to come. You and your kids will have instant shade. Seat belts can get hot enough in the summertime that they can burn skin. It can be 140 degrees inside here when the windows are closed. You also don't want to leave your kids in here for a short period of time. I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but people do it every year who come here. They're not experienced with the intensity of the heat that we have in the Sonoran Desert in places like Phoenix or Southern California. I remember one search and rescue friend of mine from California, Baker, California, saying that they came upon a bunch of German tourists a few years ago. This is just outside of Death Valley. In the summertime, it's 130 degrees there sometimes. 201 degree ground temperature. They have the record temperature for everything here in North America and Death Valley, so it's a furnace. They came up on this vehicle of Germans who had gotten lost, gotten stuck in the backcountry. When they got to the vehicle, they found that the knobs and some of the dials were already melted. I've seen dashboards in Phoenix get warped from the heat. The ink out of in pens sometimes bubbles out. So it's extreme. Don't assume that because you're going on a road trip out in the desert Southwest here, it's going to be like driving back east in Virginia or New York. It can be life-threatening. So have that gear with you that I just went over. Carry tons of water. You can't overdo that. And make sure you've got stuff to protect you and your kids from the sun. The sunscreen, the hats, sunglasses, all those kinds of things.